A mother searches for years, praying to hold her lost child again. But what if the moment she's been waiting for is not what she expected? When Sarah, devastated by the disappearance of her daughter Lily, walks the streets one day, something catches her eye. Lily, her daughter, standing on the corner, dirty and broken, begging for help. The girl she once knew is gone, replaced by someone unrecognizable. This is not just a reunion, it's a heart-wrenching journey of survival and pain. Stay with us until the end to uncover the truth behind their story. This is a journey you'll never forget. Sarah had always been the kind of mother who would move mountains for her daughter Lily. Their days were filled with laughter, shared secrets, and quiet moments of bonding that made their relationship unbreakable. Every milestone in Lily's life was celebrated together. From her first words to her first steps, Sarah had never known a love stronger than the one she had for her daughter, and in her heart, she believed that nothing could tear them apart. But then, one dreadful day, Lily disappeared. No warning, no trace, just gone. The pain of that day still haunted Sarah every waking moment. She searched high and low, plastering flyers, contacting the authorities, and reaching out to anyone who might have information. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. The search grew colder with every passing day. Each night, Sarah lay awake, clinging to the hope that she would one day hold her daughter again. But as time went on, the hope seemed to slip further away. The calls stopped coming. The tips faded into silence. It was as if Lily had vanished from the face of the earth. The world outside continued as normal, but Sarah's world had come to a halt. She was stuck in a never-ending loop of uncertainty and despair. Sarah had lost her daughter, and it felt like she had lost everything. It had been years since Sarah had even allowed herself to hope, but that afternoon, everything changed. As she walked down the crowded city street, a flicker of something, a feeling she couldn't ignore, stopped her dead in her tracks. The noise of the world seemed to fade as her eyes locked onto a figure standing on the corner. At first, Sarah wasn't sure why her heart began to race, but then she saw it. A young girl, her face downcast, with hollow eyes and a hand stretched out, pleading for spare change. A cold chill washed over Sarah as her feet moved instinctively towards the girl. Something was so familiar about her, yet something was terribly wrong. With each step, Sarah's heart pounded louder in her chest. She reached the girl, and that's when the world seemed to blur around her. The girl's face was covered in dirt, her clothes ragged and torn, but it was her eyes, those eyes. Sarah froze, the realization hitting her like a punch to the gut. It was Lily, her daughter, standing before her, looking so lost, so broken. But this wasn't the bright-eyed little girl Sarah remembered. The girl before her had endured suffering that no child should ever experience. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. How was this possible? How could her daughter be here, on the street, begging for help? She reached out, her hand trembling. But the words, there were no words. The shock, the confusion, the overwhelming flood of emotions, it all hit Sarah like a wave, crashing against the shore. She felt like she was losing control, her mind racing with questions. Where had Lily been all these years? What had happened to her? Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she fought to keep her composure. She wanted to pull her daughter into her arms, hold her, tell her everything would be okay. But instead, she stood there, paralyzed, as Lily looked away, averted her gaze, and refused the help Sarah desperately wanted to give. Tears blurred Sarah's vision as she stood there, staring at the young woman before her, her daughter, but not. Every inch of her body screamed to reach out, to pull Lily into her arms, and never let go. But the reality of the situation kept her frozen in place. Her hands trembled, struggling to bridge the vast, heartbreaking distance between them. "Lily," Sarah whispered, her voice barely more than a breath. Was it really her, Could this broken stranger really be her daughter? She needed to believe it, but the sight of Lily standing there, so distant, so changed, made it almost impossible. For a long, agonizing moment, Sarah could hardly speak. Lily's eyes flickered at the sound of her name, wide and filled with something Sarah had never seen in them before. Fear. And yet, there was recognition. Her daughter knew her, but this was not the Lily Sarah remembered. The girl in front of her seemed like a shell of the child she once knew. Lily's once vibrant, playful eyes now held a hollow emptiness, vacant, as though life had drained every ounce of joy from them. Her skin, once soft and glowing, was pale, stretched tight over her fragile frame. There was nothing left of the bright spark Sarah had always seen in her daughter. This was a stranger, and yet it wasn't. "Lily!" Sarah's voice cracked, her throat tight with emotion. She could barely recognize the girl standing before her, and the agony of that realization tore through her like a knife. What had happened to her daughter? Where had she been all these years? Why was she here, begging for scraps on the street, instead of in the loving home Sarah had always imagined for her? Every question she asked only led to more. Sarah wanted to scream, to shake her daughter awake, to make her speak, to tell her everything. But Lily stood there silently, her gaze averted, as though her own memories were too painful to confront. Sarah wanted to reach for her, to comfort her. But the physical changes were not all that separated them. It was the emotional distance. Years of pain, neglect, and whatever had happened to Lily in the time they'd been apart, that felt like a wall between them. There was no warmth in the touch that Sarah longed to give, only the unbearable coldness of unspoken trauma. How long had Lily been like this? Sarah's heart ached with the weight of that question. She felt like she had missed the most important chapters of her daughter's life, and now she was left standing in the wreckage, unable to help. The world around Sarah seemed to disappear as she tried to process the impossible. How could this be happening? How had she failed her daughter? The pain of seeing Lily, yet not seeing her, was a wound too deep to understand. The reunion, if it could even be called that, was anything but the joyful scene Sarah had always dreamed of. As she knelt beside Lily, offering her a hand to help her up, Sarah's gaze fell upon the raw evidence of her daughter's suffering. The delicate skin of Lily's hands was covered in scars, long, jagged marks as though they were reminders of past battles fought in silence. There were bruises on her face, dark patches that had once been vibrant, youthful skin. Her eyes, those eyes that once sparkled with joy and curiosity, were now dull, void of the warmth that once filled them. Sarah's heart dropped. This was not the daughter she remembered. Lily took Sarah's hand, but the contact felt alien. Her fingers were cold, stiff, as though she hadn't been touched in a long time. I don't know if I can do this," Lily whispered, her voice breaking. Sarah's heart with its fragility. "I don't know how to explain it, how to make you understand." The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken words. For a moment, Sarah just held Lily's hand, trying to offer some comfort, but the weight of everything that had happened hung between them like a dark cloud. Then, with a shaky breath, Lily began to speak. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice hoarse and barely audible. "I wasn't lost, Mom. I was taken." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. "Taken?" she echoed. Her mind raced to make sense of it. Was this some kind of misunderstanding? What was Lily saying? Lily nodded slowly, her eyes distant, as if she was reliving the horrors. "I was just a kid when they took me," Lily continued, her voice quivering. "They said I'd be safe, that they'd protect me. But they didn't. They sold me, Mom. They sold me like I was nothing." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Sold her daughter, her beautiful, innocent Lily. She could hardly breathe as the truth sank in, each sentence like a weight, pulling her deeper into a nightmare she had never imagined. Lily's voice cracked. and she wiped away a tear that threatened to fall. I was kept in a place with other girls. Girls who had been taken, just like me. They used us, Mom. They made us do things I can't even talk about. Sarah's chest tightened as if her heart were being squeezed in a vice. The pain in Lily's voice, the guilt, the shame. Sarah had no words. She had never in her worst nightmares imagined that this was what her daughter had been through. I tried to escape, Lily went on, her words coming faster now, as though the floodgates had finally opened. I tried so many times, but they always found me. They kept me hidden from everyone. They made sure I was far away from the life I knew. They told me you didn't want me anymore. They told me you had moved on. Sarah's stomach churned as Lily's words echoed in her mind. She had never stopped looking for her daughter, never stopped hoping. To hear that Lily had been made to believe she was abandoned, it was almost too much to bear. The story poured out of Lily in fragments. She had been moved from one place to another, forced into a life of fear and silence. There had been moments of fleeting hope, moments when she thought she might escape, but each time the chains of her captivity pulled her back. "Who did this to you?" Sarah finally managed to ask, her voice trembling with anger and sorrow. Who took you?" Lily shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know. They were always different, always new faces. But I know they all worked for someone bigger, someone who—" She paused, her face contorting in pain. "I never saw their faces, but I know they did this to so many girls." The weight of what Lily had said hung in the air like a cold, suffocating fog. Sarah wanted to scream, to find these people, to make them pay for what they had done to her daughter. But the truth was even darker than she had anticipated. Her daughter had not just been lost, she had been victimized in ways Sarah couldn't even fathom. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. "I wanted to come home so badly, Mom, but I didn't know how. I didn't know if I could be the girl I used to be anymore. I didn't know if you'd still want me, if I could still be your daughter." Tears streamed down Sarah's face as she finally pulled Lily into a tight embrace, holding her as if she could shield her from the world's cruelty. "I'm so sorry, Lily," Sarah sobbed. "I'm so sorry I couldn't save you sooner, but I will never let you go again. We'll get through this together, I promise." The truth had been unbearable, but it was a truth Sarah had to face if she was ever to help her daughter heal. And as the realization sank in, Sarah knew one thing for sure. The road ahead would not be easy, but they would face it together. The silence between Sarah and Lily was suffocating, as though both were unsure how to take the next step. The mother longed to comfort her daughter, to erase the pain that had marred her life for so long. But Lily, her sweet, innocent girl, seemed so far away, emotionally unreachable. Sarah could feel the weight of that distance every time she tried to hold Lily's hand or speak the comforting words she longed to say. Lily pulled away, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and confusion. She couldn't understand why her mother still seemed so warm, so loving, when everything inside her was so broken. For so long she had been made to believe that love was conditional, that love came with strings attached, with pain and betrayal. How could she trust Sarah when the world had shown her so much cruelty? How could she trust anyone again? "I'm sorry," Lily whispered, her voice fragile. "I don't know how to be the girl you want me to be." Sarah felt her heart crack in that moment. She had hoped the reunion would be enough to fix everything, but it was clear that the healing process would be far more complicated than she had imagined. "No, sweetie," Sarah replied, her voice full of warmth. "You don't have to be anything but yourself. I don't want you to be the girl I want you to be. I just want you to be my daughter again." But Lily shook her head, her tears flowing freely now. I'm not the same. I've changed too much. I've seen too much. I don't know how to go back. Sarah had seen the darkness in Lily's eyes. The trauma was real, deep, and it wasn't something that could be erased with a hug or a few comforting words. Lily wasn't the carefree little girl Sarah had once known. She was a survivor, scarred by experiences no child should have to endure. With every story Lily told, Sarah's heart broke more. The innocent smile her daughter once wore was gone, replaced by a cold, distant stare. But Sarah knew, deep down, that the only way forward was to fight for her daughter. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "It's going to take time, Lily. I know you're hurting, I know you're scared, but you don't have to do this alone anymore. I'm here, and I will never leave you." Lily looked up at Sarah, her eyes filled with doubt and hesitation. What if I can't be the daughter you want me to be?" she asked, her voice small and broken. "You don't have to be perfect, Lily. You just have to be you," Sarah reassured her gently, squeezing her hand. The pain was still raw, and there were moments when Sarah questioned if they would ever truly recover. But in that moment, she made a promise to herself and to her daughter. She would fight for Lily's recovery, no matter how long it took, no matter how difficult it became. Lily looked at her mother, her face filled with uncertainty. "I don't know if I can trust anyone again," she said softly. "You can trust me," Sarah whispered, her voice unwavering. "You can trust me, and we will take it one day at a time. We don't have to fix everything today, but we can start by healing together." The journey ahead would be long, and there would be setbacks, but Sarah was certain of one thing: she would never give up on her daughter. She would be there every step of the way, providing the love and support that Lily so desperately needed. As the two sat there in the quiet of the moment, Sarah realized that the true journey wasn't just about finding her daughter. It was about rebuilding the life they had lost together. The weeks that followed were filled with small yet significant steps forward. Sarah and Lily's relationship, once fractured by years of pain and silence, began to heal, slowly but steadily. The road was anything but easy. There were moments of anger, of confusion, of sadness, but through it all, Sarah remained steadfast. She knew that recovery wasn't something that could be rushed, but that every day was a chance to rebuild what had been lost. Sarah made a promise to her daughter, one she would never break. She promised to help Lily find peace, to help her face the darkness that had haunted her for so long. Sarah's unwavering love became the foundation upon which they began to rebuild their lives. No longer was Lily a frightened, broken little girl lost in the streets. She was now a young woman with a future ahead of her, a future that Sarah would help her navigate every step of the way. At first, Lily's smiles were rare, but over time they became more frequent. The emptiness in her eyes slowly faded, replaced by small glimmers of hope. There were days when Lily would sit with Sarah and talk about the things she remembered, the happier moments before her world had shattered. And then there were days when she would sit in silence, lost in her thoughts. But that was okay. Sarah understood. Healing didn't always come in neat, perfect packages. It came in waves, and every wave was progress. As the weeks turned into months, there was a sense of calm that began to settle between them. It wasn't a grand transformation, but it was real. Lily started to trust again, trust in herself and in her mother. The future, though uncertain, now held promise. There would be struggles ahead, but Sarah and Lily knew they could face them together. The darkness that had overshadowed their lives for so long was beginning to lift, and as Sarah looked at her daughter, she knew that no matter what, they had each other. That, in itself, was enough to move forward. Journey to healing had just begun, but for the first time in years, Sarah felt hopeful for what the future might hold. This story of Sarah and Lily is one of heartache, resilience, and ultimately, healing. Through all the pain and suffering, they discovered the incredible power of a mother's love, an unbreakable force that could withstand even the most unimaginable challenges. No matter how dark the path may seem, love always finds a way to lead us back to each other. For those of you who may be facing your own struggles or who have loved ones you're fighting for, let this story remind you of the strength we all carry within us. Never underestimate the healing power of love, and always cherish the moments you have with those who mean the most. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional journeys and real-life stories that will inspire and move you. Your voice matters, and we want to hear from you. If this story moved you, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with those who might need to hear it, and subscribing to our channel for more powerful true stories. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done in Sarah's shoes? Let's start a conversation about the importance of family, the power of love, and the incredible strength that comes from never giving up hope.